The eternal girl is a psychological archetype that describes a woman who remains fixated at a girly stage of development, often prioritizing dependence and seeking validation from external sources, particularly men. Now, this archetype can manifest in various ways, each reflecting the complexities of feminine identity and the societal expectations placed upon women. One common manifestation of the eternal girl is the darling doll, a woman who strives to conform to the idealized images and expectations projected onto her by her partner and society. Now, this desire to please and adapt can lead to a suppression of individuality and a fragile sense of self-worth that becomes contingent upon external validation. The constant performance of femininity can leave this woman feeling empty and unfulfilled, as they deny their authentic selves in favor of fulfilling societal expectations. Another manifestation is the girl of glass, characterized by a withdrawal from the war and a retreat into a fantasy world as a coping mechanism for navigating a perceived hostile or overwhelming external environment. This pattern is often associated with absent or emotionally distant father figures, leading to difficulties in establishing a secure connection with the masculine and a sense of safety in the world. The metaphor of glass illustrates the fragility and isolation that these women embody, often seeking refuge in their inner worlds rather than engaging with the challenges and complexities of the external world. The third is the high flyer or dona juana. The high flyer or dona juana embodies a rejection of societal constraints and expectations placed upon women, particularly those related to domesticity and traditional feminine roles. These women seek exhilaration and fulfillment through a constant pursuit of new experiences and relationships, often prioritizing their freedom and autonomy over long-term commitments. However, this continuous pursuit of excitement can sometimes mask a fear of intimacy, commitment, and a potential vulnerability that comes with forming lasting bonds. Finally, the misfit emerges from a profound sense of shame, rejection, and not belonging, often rooted in early experiences of familiar dysfunctions or societal disapproval. This woman may feel alienated from societal norms and expectations, either due to their identification with a marginalized or ostracized parent figure, or as a form of rebellion against a society that they perceive as judgmental or unforgiving. This pattern can manifest as self-destructive behavior, substance abuse, or a cycle of unhealthy relationships, reflecting a deep-seated belief in their own unworthiness and a struggle to find acceptance and belonging. While the eternal girl archetype often presents as innocent and charming, their outward appearance can mask a darker shadow side characterized by a denial of personal power, often manifesting in manipulative behavior and a refusal to take responsibility for one's actions. Now, despite seeming passive, the eternal girl can be surprisingly adept at manipulating others to get her needs met, a tendency that stems from her dependence on external validation and her inability to assert her needs directly. The eternal girl also tends to avoid acknowledging her own power, preferring to remain in a state of perceived powerlessness as a defense mechanism that allows her to avoid responsibility and the potential risk associated with claiming her agency. This dynamic can be particularly pronounced in women who have experienced absent or inadequate fathering, as they may struggle to develop a healthy relationship with power, either rejecting it outright or wielding it in unhealthy ways. Now, unable to confront her own shadow side, the eternal girl may project negative traits onto others, particularly men, allowing her to maintain her idealized self-image while avoiding the discomfort of acknowledging her own flaws and capacity for harm. For instance, the high flyer might accuse men of being incapable of commitment, while the misfit may view them as inherently untrustworthy. So by clinging to the eternal girl archetype, women may unconsciously resist the challenges and responsibilities of adulthood, manifesting as a fear of commitment, a tendency to avoid difficult decisions, or an over-reliance on others for guidance and support. Now, this fear of adulthood is often fueled by societal expectations that equate femininity with youthfulness and dependence. So the transformation process for the eternal girl begins with consciously recognizing the pattern and accepting the suffering associated with it, which involves acknowledging the shadow side of the archetype, including manipulation and a denial of personal power. So to achieve true transformation, the eternal girl must first acknowledge her inherent strength and power, moving away from the dependence and powerlessness characteristic of the archetype. This strength is already present within her. It simply needs to be recognized and embraced. Next, she must take responsibility for her life, making her own choices and accepting the consequences that come with them. This shift from passivity to agency is a key aspect of her transformation. Now, setting healthy boundaries is also essential for her growth, which applies both to those who refuse limits, such as the high flyer and the misfits, and those who excessively accept them, such as the girl of glass and the darling doll. So establishing a balanced relationship with boundaries allows her to develop a stronger sense of self and navigate relationships more effectively. Finally, the eternal girl must embrace authenticity, defining her own values and living in accordance with her true self rather than conforming the external expectations and projections. This involves moving away from the desire to be mysterious and instead focusing on actualizing her unique potential. Now, several psychological and societal factors contribute to the prevalence of the eternal girl archetype. Women are often praised for traits like compliancy, gentleness, and obedience, which can encourage them to remain in a state of arrested development. Absent or inadequate fathering can also lead to difficulties in forming a secure sense of self and navigating relationships with men, as seen in the girl of glass and the misfit subtypes. The eternal girl often derives her identity from the projections of others, such as being the good daughter, the charming wife, which hinders her ability to develop a strong sense of self. Additionally, the archetype often seeks refuge in possibility, avoiding the challenges and limitations of real-world commitments due to a fear of failure or a desire to avoid the complexities of adulthood. Now, while challenging, the transformation process can be initiated by various experiences, such as meaningful relationships with supportive and understanding partners who help the eternal girl recognize her own worth and potential. External crises that confront her with the consequences of her actions can force her to acknowledge her own agency and make difficult choices, while internal crises that expose the painful consequences of her patterns can motivate her to seek more fulfilling ways of life. Dreams and synchronicities can also provide valuable insights into unconscious patterns and potential for growth, guiding the eternal girl towards transformation. So the eternal girl archetype reflects the complexities of feminine identity and the societal expectations placed upon women. By understanding the various manifestations of this archetype, as well as its shadow side and the underlying psychological and societal forces that contribute to its prevalence, we can better support women in their journey towards authentic, empowered living.